Courtney Edwards, Wyndham, Maine. Oh, that's really loud, hang on.
It's loud.
I remember the pole dancing party, Snow Angel. Well, the sex toy party is part of the whole lineup, and Aunt Sadie finally agreed to host it, and it's set for the next Thursday. Anyways, Emma, she's the sex toy woman. She has been calling endlessly to pester about Aunt Sadie about the details. Would your Aunt Sadie be willing to pose in lingerie? How many pairs of handcuffs should she bring? What about S&M, or is that going too far? The definition of S&M is delivering pleasure of sexual nature from an infliction of physical and psychological pain on another person or oneself. Back to the book. Zoe girl, good girl. Are they actually going to try this stuff out at the sex toy party? Snow Angel. The idea is to normalize the sex toys so that the women want to take them home to spice up their sex lives. But Aunt Sadie's insisting that Emma only bring the catalog. She can do pole dance for her innocent niece, but she's too embarrassed to pass out vibrators. So I typed back, 5 p.m. is great, but changed my mind about the dildos. Bring lots of them, all sizes. So Emma's gonna show up next Thursday with a humongous box of dildos. I love it. This is a book, Later Gator, and it's located in your middle school. Next book I'm gonna read is Me and Earl and a Dying Girl. Are you gonna eat her pussy? Yeah, Earl, I'm gonna eat her pussy. Hey, yeah, do you even know how to eat pussy? Not really. Papa Gaines never sat you down and said, son, one day you're gonna have to eat some pussy. No, but he did teach me how to eat butthole. God bless that man, yep. I would teach you some pussy eating techniques, but it's a little complicated. Son, I don't have time for all that. I have like 20 pussies lined up over here that need to be eaten. You've got 20 vaginas all lined up in a row? What the hell? No one's talking about vaginas, Greg. What the hell's wrong with you? Man, that's just nasty. I'm talking about pussy. I got a little honey mustard over here with some Heinz 57 and a whole lot of pussy. That's also in your middle school. To extend story time that I'm gonna have with you every week, I'd like to offer an extension to Governor Janet Mills, if she's watching. Maybe she could come in here and read some of these books that are placed in your middle school to your middle school students. Wouldn't that be fun?
Anyone else?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. My name is Crystal Ash Cuthbert. I live right here in Wyndham. At last week's school board meeting, several members of the community suggested that book selections made by our school librarians were subjective, with a personal agenda in mind. Finding this comment quite curious, I researched about and directly asked several school librarians what criteria they use when selecting books for their libraries. First and foremost, they adhere to the policies that have been adopted by their school districts and any legislation or statute passed by the Maine legislature. Secondly, they check sites such as Common Sense Media for age appropriateness, content, and reading level. They also base decisions on reviews, award-winning titles, and recommendations from the American Library Association. In my research, it became quite obvious to me that our school librarians follow a very clear criteria to choose appropriate books for our children. And thank goodness they do. Because quite honestly, I'm not an expert in children's literature, nor do I have the time to do the research and reading that would be required. As professional, many librarians have both a bachelor's degree and often a master's degree in library sciences, and or are certified media specialists. They are far more qualified than me to decide what is needed in a school community of hundreds of thousands of children with different experiences, wonders, and needs. I trust our experts who work with kids and books all day to make decisions based on established and well-defined criteria. I also want to remind the board that RSU14 has 2 policies currently in place that address parental concerns that have taken hours of your time. One defines how to formally challenge the appropriateness of a book. The second allows parents to opt out of reading a particular book based on families' religious, personal, or moral beliefs. These policies are well thought out and fair, and they must continue to be followed here in RSU14. However, what is not fair is to ban any book that is appropriate for my child. As a parent, I want my child to read difficult issues and controversial topics so that she can become a more compassionate person, learn how to handle her feelings in healthy ways, and further understand people who have different experiences than her. As I was researching to prepare for my words tonight, I came across the Library Bill of Rights, and I'd like to read you their First Amendment. Libraries are forums for information and ideas. Books should be provided for interest, for information, and the enlightenment of all people of a community that the library serves.
Thank you very much.
All people.
Kristen Day from Wyndham. So IFF is being reviewed. Kate, you said that these things take time, so no time frame, I understand. And we're probably supposed to feel reassured that you're addressing the policy to solve the issue, but I have to say, based on recent history, we should all expect the opposite. As some of you know, I spent much time giving public input on a bunch of policies for the past couple of years, earnestly sharing my research into how policy could better protect kids and families in our district. I spoke about IMB, teaching about controversial and sensitive issues. These were my ideas, all of these. They were really good. I spoke about ILD survey policy, asked that the list of consent issues here could be adapted to IMB. These right here, they're considered for surveys. They were also really good. I brought in the sensitive issues permission form from my Girl Scout troop, asking why we would not afford this descript protection for the kids in our schools. This is the form I needed for Girl Scouts to talk about AIDS, child abuse, eating disorders, family crises, divorce, poverty, death, human trafficking, substance abuse, mental health, human sexuality, including alt lifestyles, teen pregnancy, domestic violence, suicide, and other describe. Here's what we got from those reviews. The removal of the word sensitive in the title. Now it's only controversial, so teachers can be selectively sensitive, I guess. IMB number 4 criteria now states, educators shall not use the classroom as a forum to advance their personal views or proselytize, but are not prohibited from expressing their own views for legitimate pedagogical purposes. Well, that's good. But what they removed from the 2019 policy was the next sentence. He, she does not employ the techniques of the demagogue or the propagandist for attention, for control, or simply for color. My, how times have changed since COVID ushered in the Great Reset. Policy now enables porn in the library and propagandism in the classroom. And shocker, none of my suggestions were taken. IMB was literally looser after revision. This was the first time I knew administration lies and the board is not representing us. And I sincerely hope IFF isn't the same game, different day. I really don't understand the mentality of supporting all books for all ages and all books are safe in school. Left-leaning people support more government policy to micromanage society on every level except in public schools with minors, our kids. Schools and staff are all perfect inherently by their job title alone, and as a group must be protected even though all humans are infallible, and that is the reason why we have laws in the first place. We ask how this most depraved adult content for young kids is needed at school.
Thank you very much.
Doris Meehan from Wyndham. I'd like to speak to you tonight about innocence. A speaker last week mentioned that innocence cannot be bought, and once it is lost, it can never be recovered. Her words were filled with wisdom, And the more I learn and see and hear about education throughout the entire country, the more I believe that we are depriving an entire generation of innocence. Publishing companies are refusing to publish young authors unless they include certain storylines or characters. Book awards are now based on similar criteria. Drag queens are doing story hours for kindergarten children, and many videos have shown where they purposefully sit in those little chairs with their legs spread so that the children can view their crotch areas. People who criticize these practices are considered old-fashioned, bigoted, biased, out of touch. No, people who criticize such practices want to protect innocence. Every week, this dedicated group of parents and community members discover more and more books in school libraries that are pornographic in word and/or graphics. They find books that are designed to hypersexualize children. The vast majority of these books have nothing to do with LGBTQIA+ population. They are vivid, graphic, stomach-churning descriptions of people who are not even in a loving, committed relationship, using each other and/or their pets for sexual experimentation and self-pleasure, leaving them feeling empty, alone, depressed, and used. I ask, what are we doing to an entire generation of children? Why is our community participating in this abuse? This problem is nationwide. I beg of you who have some power, to change it, and those citizens listening to this meeting at home, to become more informed about what is going on and to do something about it.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? I have a student coming down. 1 second, please.
Evenings, greetings. My name is July Trombley. I am from North Windham. I am coming to the school board meeting as a transgender girl of RSU14 school, Windham Middle School. To begin, as of your last meeting, other commenters spoke up making claims that this was not an attack onto the LGBTQ community. To respond with my opinion as a member of LGBTQ, that I would like to tell the board that work to ban material such as genderqueer does happen to be a direct attack onto our community with malicious purpose to silence us. I present my evidence as follows. With current proposals to ban books for explicit content in Windham and many other locations started with genderqueer, and then gradually more books, the majority of them containing queer content, were brought to attention for being removed from schools. While not all books contain LGBTQ content, a majority do. Since the claimed reason for banning of these books is to remove explicit sexual pornography from schools, this shows that this is maliciously intended and an attack onto our community. Since our stories and literature are not pornography, they have become a target to be removed from educational environments because of stigma and bias against our community. Secondly, the group that is attempting to remove such material seems to be aligned with a conservative political party, which, not to antagonize, but has a long history of stigma, bias, and lack of support for the LGBTQ community, as well as values that oppose our existence. Therefore, they carry a reasonable motive to target us and silence us LGBTQ people. My third set of evidence is that despite already having been provided with multiple options and compromises, such as the ability for parents to restrict what books kids may read, and the commenter-suggested library card restriction system, the group attempting to ban material still refute and persist to work and to remove content. This signifies a persistent, biased attempt in removing content just for the inclusion of sexual scenes, especially LGBTQ-focused ones. My fourth and final piece of evidence, by the collective opinion of the LGBTQ community, myself, my many peers, our cisgender straight supporters, agree from our perspective and experiences that the banning and removal of queer content from our libraries, such as genderqueer, is felt as a malicious intended attack onto our community. No matter what the intent is, it harms us and makes us feel unwelcome into our own home of Windham and Raymond. If we feel that we are being targeted, no matter what our opposition says, you cannot deny our experiences and emotions. To finalize this, I would like to insist that from the point of view of myself and fellow LGBTQ peers, with the evidence as provided, that this is an active attack to silence our community, and I urge you to take notice, Remember that this is not just a case of removing explicit media, but an attempt to silence the marginalized and vulnerable communities based on biased and ignorant views. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Ewan and I'm from Wyndham. Give me a moment,
Could
sorry.
you give me your last name, please?
O'Shea, sorry. I truly hope none of you adults here believe that us, the kids, the high school at least, would go to any of these books in search of pornography, because I'm sure most of us are much too lazy to do that. If I wanted to see anything like that, I would just go to my phone here and browse the internet on any websites I see fit. I have known about these sites for a while, and I'm sure all the students here at the high school are aware of them, considering some of the things I've heard at different times of the day, mostly lunch. Based on those things, I can say with confidence that whatever innocence we've once had is completely gone. Out of the window, in smithereens, whatever. If I'm up here in Wyndham, my innocence is down in Southern California, reduced to a charred pile of ash. I do not see a problem with these books being shown at the high school. In fact, I care very little at all. If any of us kids had a problem with these books, we would just ignore it and move on. It's not like many of us go to the library that much anyway, other than to study or get out of class. I honestly appreciate you guys for being able to sit through all this, because the meeting I went through last week left me bored out of my mind. It may be my lack of interest or my completely ruined attention span, but it was also because I heard nearly the same two arguments over and over and over again. Not to say they are bad or invalid, they are good points, but the repetition just makes me feel like I'm wasting my time. Some people might think that the only flag we need on our walls is that American one right there, but every time I look at that flag in this room more than any other room, it only tells me that all of us are just as divided as those red and white stripes.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Candace Sparling, and I live in Raymond. I'm a proud mother of 3 adult children and 8 grandchildren. Tonight is my 4th school meeting. I have not gotten up to speak until now because I wanted to hear what people on both sides had to say. More importantly, I wanted to know how they felt. A lot of young people got up to speak these past few weeks, and it seemed as though they felt alienated and misunderstood. That bothers me just as much as the issues in the pornographic books in the library. As a mother, I brought my kids up to tell the truth, to do what was right, and be respectful. When they misbehaved, they knew there were going to be consequences for sure. I remember punishing or grounding my kids many times and knowing they were going to be very angry with me and thinking they are never going to forgive me. But then I said to myself, that is a chance I'm going to take because I'm their mother. The job God gave me was to be a mother, not the friend of my children, not at that time of their lives. But then I said, I know that I would continue to do whatever it took to keep them safe and to protect them and guide them into being responsible adults. So now, I'm asking you to please do the same thing. Take these books out of the school library and protect the children from the pornography, because that's your job. Then please start a class or school meetings every month to teach the children that bullying is wrong, that kids need to be inclusive and kind to one another, and that no matter how they identify, God loves all the children. Thank you.
Thank you. Who would like to speak next? Very good.
Good evening, board members. My name is Ashlyn Cuthbert, and I'm 8th grader at Wyndham Middle School. I want to state 2 things very, very clearly tonight. The first is that I, as well as many others, appreciate the board's commitment to our community through this debate. I understand that whichever way the board votes and decides, they won't please everyone. We thank you for your tenacity through this strenuous period. The second point I would like to make is that these books save lives. The best way to protect our students is to keep these books in our libraries. As an 8th grade student, I am surrounded by students all day who are trying to find themselves in a world full of people trying to tell them who to be. Books are a main source of information for these young adults. While I understand a parent's and/or a student's right not to read certain books, having those books taken out of libraries so they are unavailable to a student who needs them is absolutely inappropriate. I am here speaking up for my peers because they are scared of what will happen if they speak for themselves. The books that are being called out are just as much as a lifesaver as a first aid kit. To someone contemplating suicide, reading a story that relates to them brings them out of their depression. Just the same, hearing about how parents and peers are attacking their journey can push them farther in. And for those of you who have heard of this story, you could be their 13th reason. I ask that the board keep these policies in place so that books can continue to be available to students who need them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Board. My name is Jean Fisk. I'm a resident of Wyndham and taxpayer. I would first like to recognize two individuals who spoke at last Wednesday's meeting. The first, a parent who pointed out once a child's innocence is lost by the exposure of pornographic material, that child's mind becomes catastrophically changed. I'd like to also recognize and applaud Chad Jewell, who eloquently spoke in opposition of reading materials that pornographically display sexual acts and are currently available in Wyndham school libraries. While working as a registered nurse at Jackson Brook Psychiatric Hospital that treated children, I witnessed the brokenness of an 11-year-old boy. He had been a victim of sexual abuse, his innocence was lost, and his mind was preoccupied by what had been seen and experienced. While a student of the social work program, I spent my internship at a junior high school. My mentor was a master's degree social worker. To my shocking disappointment, she shared that she and another teacher laughed at the story of a 13-year-old girl who shared her sexual experience. I had expected my mentor to act much more professional with higher ethical standards, but she was only human. So how can we attempt to rectify the emotional and psychological trauma that so many of our students have experienced and have been forced to endure? There is a book which has been read more than any other book worldwide. It is called the Bible. It is a book which provides comfort for the lonely, joy for the oppressed, love for those who don't feel accepted, hope for the people who may be experiencing depression and hopelessness, and most importantly, healing for the brokenhearted. The New Living Translation Bible is written to meet all reading levels of school-age students up through high school. For beginning readers, I would recommend reading 1 John and 1 Peter, which provides joy, hope, and promise, as well as healing. The head pastor of the South Wyndham Community Church has offered to donate a case of the New Living Translation Bibles for librarians of students, RSU14 students. As a retired registered nurse and licensed social worker, it has been and continues to be my passion to help others achieve a feeling of emotional, psychological, and overall feelings of hope and well-being. I ask that the RSU14 board seriously and courageously consider this proposal. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Evening, school board, community members. Name is Lois Olet, Wyndham, have first grader. And let's open up with board biases. Because in my opinion, this board should act neutrally, period. Means check your biases at the door and assess it on the facts, period. Don't bring any political agenda or rhetoric into the decision on these books. That's the first start. Second start, kind of follow up on the previous speaker, if they want to bring the Bible into this. Okay, fine. Matthew 22nd, verse 39, is Jesus preaching to his followers, telling them to love others as they love thyself. Now that means that you are to love your neighbor, your community members, everybody, even those you find reprehensible. Period. Unconditionally, as Jesus instructed you to. Now, I consider myself secular and not of the church anymore. I was raised in the church. But when a church member told me that I needed to hate somebody based on something that they could not control themselves, I said, no, that is not of the teachings. Follow that up, Matthew 7:12, golden rule, same thing. So let's see, that's twice Jesus said, love others as you love yourself. Thirdly, John 8:7, he who is without sin may cast the first stone, speaking of Mary Magdalene. He is telling everybody to not judge others, period. There's no conditions, no stipulations. Love other humans as you love yourself. Now, as far as the list of books that the group wishes to ban, I think it's a stipulation in policy IJJ that the person who is challenging the book has read the book itself and not taken just cliff notes from booklooks.org. Lastly, came across a TikTok video last night of a 100-year-old woman from Martin County, Florida, named Grace Lynn. Her husband died.
Thank you very much, sir.
Of course.
Hello, my name is Kate Turpin. I'm a Wyndham resident and a scholarship sponsor. And something I'm really big about is accountability and owning when people change. So I'm gonna hold myself accountable. I misquoted Adam Zajac.
Ma'am.
Oh, sorry.
You must address the
Oh,
board,
I'm sorry,
please.
okay, later. I wanna say this to the room. I've also heard a change in arguments in people whose viewpoints oppose mine, that at one point I was hearing books largely belonging to the LGBT community being brought before the board, and that's largely when I have an issue with it. I will own that I don't know all the books and all these passages that are being brought up, but obviously they should pass some kind of a standard. I do want to own, though, that I've heard a change in argument, slightly. But to you, the board, my heart is holding space for any of you who identify within the LGBTQIA community. I'm so proud that you show up here every single week to bear the brunt of your civic duty. I'm proud of the queer kids you could have been, growing into resilient adults and community partners. It's incredibly hard to hear books which try to bring accuracy to our experiences being pushed out of our school libraries. I've felt threatened by the loss of these books. We have seen that separate by no way means equal. So putting books in the public library is not going to be equal, even though separate. I appreciate you tackling such polarizing topics. And on behalf of myself, a queer Windham resident, I see you. I'm proud that you're here. Please keep showing up for our town and of our kids. Thank you.
Thank you.
Justin Wynot from Windham. I'd like to bring your attention to a very special group of people. Everyone sitting in this room right now likely knows one of these very special people, either directly or indirectly. This group exists on what we refer to as the spectrum. For everyone here who loves someone that is autistic, you know how wonderful, special, and easily impressionable they can be. Some of the curriculum being used in this district and content that is easily accessible in the library seems to be targeting an already vulnerable group of children. These books that are portraying age-inappropriate sexual content and self-harm, materials that promote ideologically malicious social-emotional curriculum, these things are inappropriate for the average population of students this age. For this special minority, it's manipulative and damaging to the innocent developing minds of the children of RSU14 and can result in destructive behavior. So I'm here to ask you directly, are you targeting autistic children? Are you just opportunistically manipulating the most vulnerable children first? Or have you not thought about the more vulnerable children in your school? In your refusal to act and remove the inappropriate content. Cherished members of the autistic community are already burdened by social anxieties, but many will develop coping mechanisms that help them lead a more fulfilling life with less burden of stress. As we all know, imagination is a blessing given to us at youth that regretfully tends to fade away with age. Many of us have fond memories of Mr. Rogers' trolley cruising through the make-believe land, but at the end of the show, the trolley always came back to reality. I highly encourage imagination. It can lead to great things. But as adults, as parents, as a governing body, it is our duty to ensure that it always makes it back to reality. The equity opportunity of this district seems to be targeting the spectrum community with its curriculum and library content that promotes self-harm, suicide, rape, incest, and many other horrible things. Things that can be traumatizing and triggering for adults are being provided freely to children, including our most vulnerable children. No adult should be subjecting vulnerable, innocent children to this atrocious content. I will leave you with this. Is this the legacy you want to leave behind? A legacy of preying on precious, underappreciated, most vulnerable children of the community.
Thank you. I see someone coming down.
Hi, my name is Mary Trombley, Windham resident, parent and staff member, also parent of July Trombley, who is on the autism spectrum, said I could announce that publicly and is thoroughly not feeling vulnerable because of their identity as somebody with autism, but because of their LGBTQ identity. Please don't make assumptions about a community that is vast, varied, and on a wide spectrum. I want to acknowledge your extra time and energy this month. Thank you. I would really like to speak about context and author's purpose. Context is hugely important in a book. Authors work hard to lay foundation for their readers. That way, when the reader encounters a surprising, intense, or uncomfortable theme, it is grounded in a message and a purpose. So to challenge books without reading them, or to get up here and read something out of context is wrong, deceitful, and malicious. These scenes, these characters, these sexual expressions and actions all do have a purpose. Some, like Nick and Charlie, have a purpose of portraying real relationships. Others have a purpose of bringing light to the impact and harm of sexual assault. Both are based in realities that people face, and both are written with the intent to help the reader. To take certain scenes out of context, to blindly call all books that touch on these sensitive topics obscene or pornographic really only shows an inability or unwillingness to read. Context especially matters in the case of stories that deal with sexual violence. Last week, you heard an excerpt of one book taken out of context. That story was so far from pornographic. It clearly involved a situation the main character did not want to be in. It was hard to hear, but essential to tell. It should make us uncomfortable, but those stories, like the people who identify with them, are valid. Perhaps in this case, the author's purpose was to process their trauma. Perhaps they couldn't and should not be silent about the realities of sexual assault. It may have been written to show how someone was affected by and began to heal from a horrible situation. So please consider our students who may identify with a story like that. If we begin to say this book does not belong in a school library, we send a message to the students who may relate to that book that their lived experience is too shameful or obscene to even read about. We are telling them that the school expects them to be silent, and that would be immoral. If, with the intent to shield children from the world, we remove the books that acknowledge the experience of our queer community, that have characters who face hard truths, and even the ones that do address horrible realities, such as the prevalence of sexual violence, the negative impact would be unimaginable. Because if we say these books don't belong in our schools, we say that the children who go through these experiences don't belong in our schools. And that is a message no one should send.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Stephen Napolitano from Wyndham. On the news, Mr. Howell said school libraries should have books for students to identify as a resource. The DARE program is a police officer-led series of classroom lessons that teaches children from kindergarten through 12th grade how to resist pressure and live productive drug and violence-free life. I asked Mr. Howell, are these books resourceful to support our DARE program? Encouraging distilled alcohol from underage drinking experiences like how to never have drunk sex with someone sober, make sure both are drunk, how to snort cocaine to enhance sexual experience. What part of this is resourceful, Mr. Howell? Encouraging drug use, group sex, pornography, bestiality, anal sex, oral sex, child molestation, rape, or incest. And we're talking middle school, right? The recent IJJ update was proposed by Mr. Howell to the board on March 9th, 2022. Mr. Howell said he could expedite the book challenge process if the books are dangerous. The IJJ was updated last year to add a stall tactic. Congratulations to Kate Brooks and Chris Howell, you succeeded. Before the book challenge committee can even meet, the IJJ process forces parents to meet with the librarians that have never even read the books when they order them. Mr. Howell even signed off for all the books that were purchased. At least 90 of these inappropriately aged books have entered the RSU14 library during the COVID lockdown when nobody was even watching. Kate, you say you follow policy. Kate, you set the policy, and Kate, you can change the policy. Kate, where's your urgency? Where's the urgency from you? You have plenty of urgency to add executive sessions to expel students. Why have you not set an emergency policy meeting to change the IJJ policy? Your lack of action continues to damage our community. So why did Mr. Howell say that he can expedite the process? Why did the high school librarian remove a book if we only follow policy? When do all the children matter? Kate, you set the agenda and you sit on the policy committee. What urgency have you shown since Knox spoke on February 15th? These books are dangerous for minors, our children, and our grandchildren. Kate, you have chosen to protect the superintendent's paycheck over the safety and well-being of our RSU14 students. I hope everyone in Wyndham and Raymond are watching right now. The school budget vote happens this spring. Most of our taxes go to this school system. Most people don't like public speaking, but they can surely vote down your budget until you start taking action to remove this trash from our school libraries. This is how we can force change, because Kate Bricks and Chris Howe won't protect our children. Thank you.
Anyone else? Any other speakers?
Good evening, it's April O'Shea. I'm from Windham. I would like to commend the students that have spoken before the board these past few weeks. Each of their comments were well-reasoned, articulate, and heartfelt. They clarified the criteria by which literature can be classified as pornography and offered solutions besides outright banning of materials, such as a library notification system. These intrepid students are a testament to the good works being done by our educators here at RSU14. I would like to acknowledge the teachers and support staff who care for our children. Increasingly, schools and staff have had to take on the role of raising some of those children. Children from homes where abuse and neglect are present, children from homes where their guardians are working increasingly long hours just to keep a roof overhead and are just not as present as they'd like to be. The children in our community know that when they walk through those school doors, they will be fed, they will be clothed if needed, and they will find stability and support. I could not think of a more important job than to care for the teaching of our youth, and I thank those individuals who take on this task with selflessness and love. We as a community must be mindful of those students who hail from different socioeconomic backgrounds. Last week it was suggested that students who could go to a public library or bookstore. Not all students and their families have the ability or means to visit a bookstore or public library. My son, who spoke earlier, can attest that there is not a lot of time during the high school schedule to leave for the public library. Removing materials flagged controversial by some is putting an undue burden on those students. Removing materials that do not align with particular ideologies seems a bit unconstitutional. I trust that the administration will continue to vet material based on sound policy, which should be backed by experts, academics, and research, and not be swayed by opinions and cherry-picked quotes. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Courtney Post Vandenberg, Windham resident. I am a support staff person here at the high school, and I am a youth leader at a South Windham church. And I just wanted to say thank you. I saw a few board members. I saw a bunch of community members, staff, teachers, people from all over. My grandfather flew up from Florida, of what a wonderful performance the Windham Chamber Singers had with the Celtic tenors. It was great. If you missed it, you missed out. Thanks.
Anybody else?
My name is Ken Anderson. I'm from Windham. I believe the problem we are facing with the question of pornography in our school is a perilous one. If we allow this to infiltrate the minds of young children, then what kind of future generation are we fostering? If it's all about the children, then why are we handling this problem with situational ethics? Ethics are found in our self-governance, our God-given ability to know what is right and what is wrong. And because God's law does not change, then we have a measure by which to govern our lives by. Just a cursory review of much of this literature in question is demoralizing and defiles the individual. Some are calling this civil rights. How is it civil to corrupt the vision of our youth? How is it right to force this illicit behavior upon the minds who we refer to as our future? This is just the same old disease with a different face trying to be normalized in another form. The same societal regression that many have been pushing from day one. Another euphemism just applied more seductively. Clearly a tool to be used for self-defeat and the fragmentation of the American family. The idea that if we only let everyone do what they want, then the world will be a better place and peace will abound. We act in defiance to the will of God, and we seem surprised when these things surface. This world has been here for thousands of years and we still haven't fixed it. This is because we lose sight of our Creator and what He has decreed for us. What was once private behavior behind closed doors is now making its way into our communities. We must stop saying to one another that, I don't care what you do, just as long as it doesn't affect me. Well, I think that everything anyone ever does affects everyone. I mean, just look around. So the more it is seen and made aware to our children is somehow making it acceptable as a life skill. Many people groups are trying to normalize sin, turning all degrees of sin into glorified mannerisms. I find one of the major components of this problem are the institutions that are supposed to be this nation's moral representative, the church. Many churches locally and nationally are allowing this type of thinking and behavior to define them. Many churches have chosen not to submit to the authority of God's word, but instead submit only to the authority of men. Much of the evangelical community has become obedient to their own inner passions and not to the unchanging character of Almighty God. And since the church is made up of people, many of whom are attending this meeting, why do we need to figure out by committee that giving children a front row seat to what crushes their spirit should somehow be okay?
Thank you. Anyone else?
Nikki Hart, Wyndham. As superintendent, school board members, and educators, your ethical promises defined in school policies and laws are in serious question as to your ability to teach and protect and safeguard. The hostile environment that your free will, decisions, and actions created in this district is having a direct impact on the health and well-being of every student, gay, straight, or questioning. Yesterday, I sat with a child in crisis who identifies as part of the LGBT community, whom is struggling with suicidal ideation due to what's going on in your schools. Between the sexually explicit books, pressures to choose a trans identity, and the segregated divide of sexual preference, they are overwhelmed with fear and anxiety. During one of the last school board meetings, I recall other LGBTQ students expressing similar concerns of fear as they describe having to-go bags under their beds. Many students on both sides have expressed the severe concerns about tensions, pressure, harassment they're enduring daily. Policy AD, board will always consider the welfare of students as the single most important factor in making decisions. This is not what's happening. What's occurring is reverse psychology, racism, and segregation. You are segregating the students into sexual labels, identities, and stereotypes, placing one protected class over another, violating the Maine Human Rights Act, which everyone, no matter how they identify, is equal. As a member of the LGBT community, it is demoralizing and degrading that you continue to push these sexually explicit books and symbolic sexual symbols on students as equity and inclusion. The rainbow flag is a symbol of sexuality, as is the pineapple is for swingers. This is not equity or inclusion. However, what you are teaching students is that the LGBT community is nothing but a mere sexual object, and that the extent of their value is nothing more than that. We are no different than anyone else except for who we choose as a partner, and the fact that you need to marginalize us like this is slanderous and dangerous. Data already shows that my community suffers from higher mental health issues, suicidal ideation, drug use, and sexual violence than any other community. You're indoctrinating and grooming children into a particular trans cult movement being pushed, which is just the gateway drug to what is coming, rather than teaching about acceptance and it's okay to like the same sex. You may be protected by the loopholes in the Maine law for possession of sexually explicit materials, but it appears you are not protected under sexual exploitation of minors. The 3 stages of child sexual exploitation, which is deliberate maltreatment, manipulation, or abuse of power and control over another person. Recruitment, which takes various forms and is defined as the grooming process. Control, which establishes the dominance over the victim, and exploitation. And policy ACAA, harassment and sexual harassment, which includes hostile environment. The preponderance of documented evidence is compelling. What is it going to take for you to stand up and do what is morally and ethically right? If you were told to teach students to jump off bridges or assault someone, would you or would you not?
Thank you very much.
How can you look at yourselves in the mirror every day knowing
I'm sorry, your time
with your
is
own
over.
free will,
I'm sorry,
you've overstepped
your
that?
time is over.
My name is David Kendall. I live in Hancock, Maine. I'm petrified for all of you because you have no clue what this rainbow movement is, what it is capable of, or what its agenda is. I'm a homosexual man. I was a transgender woman for over 20 years. I was an advocate and a member of this movement for over 30 years. The LGBTQIA trans queer rainbow cult does not represent gay men or women. This movement now represents perversion. I was targeted, I was groomed and victimized by this movement in the same manner as we see here with the agenda now sexualizing and confusing children, presenting young minds with pornographic materials, pushing an agenda that is created to manipulate and confiscate your children, mind, body, and soul is criminal. Anyone that thinks a child can decide their gender because of a non-existent gender spectrum is insane. I suffered from gender dysphoria. The definition of dysphoria is an abnormal condition of mental confusion. I suffered from an abnormal condition of mental confusion. When a child is targeted, groomed, desensitized, sexualized, and victimized, there is something in that child's mind that gets switched on. It's not meant to be switched on, not in a child or anyone that cannot make sound, reasonable, and cognitive decisions. These books, as well as the curriculum, anything LGBTQIA, trans, queer, gender ideology, or rainbow-ish, push techniques of desensitizing children to the extremes of fetish, rape, porn, sadomasochistic role play, bestiality, prostitution, incest, and that list goes on. I was the suicidal trans kid that is always brought up in these discussions, but I was also a suicidal trans adult. You know why? Because affirmation, transition, and acceptance does not take away depression, confusion, pain, or delusions of being trapped in the wrong body, which is an impossibility, by the way. These children are only regurgitating what they have been force-fed by this cult and by those promoting, encouraging, and celebrating this assault on children. Let children know it is okay to be gay, but they do not have to be sexual, and they do not have to run into the rainbow to be gay and walk in morality. 350 educators in K through 12 schools in 2022 arrested on sex crimes against children. Does nobody else see the danger when teachers and school staff try desperately to defend children being targeted, sexualized, and groomed? The question should be, that was 350 were arrested and charged. How many went unreported?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Name is Scott McDonald. I'm from Wyndham. As a former student from the school, as a student still in homeschool now, not learning about a damn thing you guys are saying about these books, not a single thing. I do not want a single one of you guys teaching me about these books, and my peers, my old peers, I don't want them learning about these books. And going back about how people, success for all, I learned back when I was in 6th grade, all before 6th grade. God created the heavens and the earth in Genesis 1:1. But I was told that freshman year, you have to listen to the class and you can't say a single word because it was the Big Bang Theory. Maybe it was a Big Bang Theory, maybe it wasn't. But people are reading these things. People call me a moron. At last week's meeting, at the end, they called me and my family a moron. And because of what we said. And wrong versus right, that was wrong, and if they were against what we said, they should not have been saying that. And people heckle, people giggle, whatever. This is not the time and place to be doing that. And also, there was a couple people of the LGBTQIA community. I did not see a person who was for these books cheering them on, doing a single thing for them as they're supposedly trying to help you out. And this is about to, when I'm older, if I had kids, I'm not having them here because I do not want a single thing getting taught to about gay sex or whatever you want to call it. It's not normal for a kid to be learning these, especially, I mean, you weren't here last week, Mr. Howell. I said there was an 11-year-old kid in middle school, and I guarantee you there's more. This is 6th grade, and these books are for, they say 14 on Google. Google, we all know, is a joke because 18-year-olds, it's supposed to be 18, you can watch porn to agree to all these things. But you're allowing porn in these schools, which is okay according to the state. But when you think about it, if you go 100 yards down the school, from this school, you can go right to the public library and get all these things. This is for everybody, success for all, and as you cross off all these books, Mr. Howell, tonight, may you ask me how many Bibles are in the middle school, elementary school, high school libraries, in or has been out in the last couple of years?
This is not a time for a response. We'd just love to hear from you.
Okay, and can I have my time back for the 5 seconds or whatever it was? I just do not appreciate being called a moron in front of the community and my family. And I know a lot of people weren't here last week, and I mean...
Thank you. Your time is concluded.
Thank you.
Good evening, Ken Clark, Wyndham. Every time we come here, I'm just astounded at how much stuff is going on. I mean, I guess first and foremost, what's on my mind tonight is, again, just the lack of procedures being followed or anyone taking responsibility at the board level on down to the librarians. These books, in many people's opinions, are not appropriate, they're pornographic, they're illegal, most of the places around. And the fact that they come into the library on the shelves and then no one takes responsibility, and then we have a book meeting, like the IJJ procedures, which we've been trying to follow so closely, I think should stand for it's just a joke. Because literally, we went to 2 different book challenges we had this week, okay? In the first one, the librarian was very good. She read the books. They had some good thought processes, good conversations about it, and they decided to pull the book. Definitely inappropriate. The second meeting we went to, the librarian, we had 3 books. She didn't read any of them. As a matter of fact, she used references on the website, and not us. She used them and defended the book based on what she had seen and written.
It's appropriate to talk about the library.
It's got to be appropriate. It is. This is what's happening. It's by public opportunity. I'm going to just say what happened.
If you would like to talk
I'll
in
move on.
generalities, that's great.
Generally, that's what happened. Okay? So, right, she didn't read the book. So how can she be educated on telling us what it's all about? Period. The other thing I want to talk about is the librarians put forth their credentials tonight. They have no credentials in child psychology or the development and understanding of the human mind as they are children. I had a PhD, for the 5th time, I had a PhD speak at the Raymond school there where we had the other meeting. She is more qualified, more educated, and knows more about child psychology than anyone in this room, unless someone else has those degrees. And the third thing that's happening, I'm just realizing it, and the folks over here brought it up so much tonight, is these kids are in pain. They get up in front of us and they say that they're suicidal. It concerns me. Did any counselors reach out to them? I really don't think they understand what's happening. I think these influences are hurting them. Did you folks ask for this porn to be put in the library? Or did someone else put it there and now you are taking the brunt of it being there? That's a question I want you to think about. Another thing is, when it comes to the bathrooms, do you have such an urge that you need to go into the bathroom of the opposite sex, and you're not more comfortable just going in a bathroom where no one is? Or are you being encouraged to go to make other people feel uncomfortable? I'm just asking these questions so we can think about them. We've got to come together on this. There has to be a happy medium. Please think about and try philosophically to walk through your emotions of what's going on. You people have said you want to reach out to our kids and give them a survey and ask our kids about their sexuality. And you guys have go bags under your bed. It's concerning. If you wonder why we are uncomfortable and feel offended, we are. I am offended by what's going
If you
on.
could
I'm
please
offended by
address the
having
board and not the audience,
I'm
that'd be
offended by
great.
having porn in the library. I'm just telling you, I'm honest with it. I'm offended by someone else, a boy wanted to go into my daughter's bathroom and maybe be exposed. And the other thing is that's happening is, again, I think you people are being subjected and put in a position that you don't deserve to be in. And do you want a pedophile
Thank you,
using
sir.
your identity to go into the bathroom?
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, Joe McIntyre, Wyndham. I'd like to start by just expressing my appreciation for the board, for the teachers, for the staff of the RSU 14. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. You've made an incredible environment for my daughters, and I know they've really appreciated it and flourished here. As a parent, I absolutely understand the need for parents to have a role in making decisions for their children. I like the idea of a happy medium. To me, a happy medium is that parents already have the right to make decisions for their children as to what books they'll read. I think the problem becomes when parents feel that they have the right to make decisions for other children, other people's children, because of the books that they don't like. We live in a pluralistic society. We live in a society where people will be surrounded by neighbors who have different opinions than them, different perspectives than them, different beliefs than them. I think it's important to communicate to parents and to children that that doesn't harm you. The existence of a book in a library that you don't want to read or that you don't want your children to read is not harming you or your children. I think it does children a disservice to communicate to them that having books around them that express ideas, experiences, perspectives that they're uncomfortable with is somehow harmful to them. So I'd strongly encourage the board to continue with the existing policy where parents have the right to make decisions for their children, but do not try to take the right to make decisions for other people's children.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak? Oh, here we go. Sorry, didn't see you.
Hi, my name is Landon Severino. I'm a former Wyndham resident, but my son is kindergarten at Wyndham Primary. I didn't really plan to speak. I just wanted to come and support, but I am just in awe that we are even having this debate. It's just back and forth, and for me, it is black and white. No matter your sexuality, the first person who spoke tonight read about licking pussy and sex toys, and this is in the school. It's not for kids. It's crazy. It's crazy. And frankly, it's weird if that's the kind of content you want in the school. No matter what sexuality you are, how you identify. It's rough out here to just even be a kid. When I was 15 years old, as a heterosexual person, I tried to commit suicide for the first time. So I identify and understand that it can be rough and you don't always fit in these things. But simply, the sexual content is inappropriate. And there is a large group of people who are not coming to these meetings who disagree with this stuff, and they just haven't spoken up yet. The time will come when they will show up. And it is a silent majority. We don't want this for the kids. We don't want sexual licking pussy, and even if you cherry pick, right? Oh, you're cherry picking from the book. This still is not appropriate. Yeah. It's just not. That's it. And we're not going anywhere, and more parents are gonna come, and the silent majority is gonna get louder and louder and louder. It's inappropriate, hands down.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Bella and I'm a sophomore here at Wyndham High School. So I've been following these school board meetings since the beginning.
Last name, please. Point of order. May I have your last name, please?
I do not wish to say. Okay, whatever, fine. My name's Bella Bragdon, and I'm a sophomore here. So I've been following them since the beginning, and there have been so many hateful threats and comments that make me disgusted and really scared for my safety and I just want to take a minute to talk about the good things going on in our community. So the Windham Chamber Singers, we just performed a concert the past weekend with the Celtic Tenors, and spring sports are starting out, tryouts, and the teams are all getting together. And I also want to take a moment to thank all my teachers for always supporting me and my peers. On a different note, the definition of pornography is visual or printed material containing the description or display of sexual organs or activity intended to simulate erotic rather than emotional or aesthetic feelings. This book is not intended to simulate any feelings. This book is on the shelf for students that seek it out. For everyone saying that this book is being pushed or forced upon students does not know what they're talking about, because this book is not in the curriculum or in classrooms. Some students need this resource for educational purposes and for students to find something that they relate to. Taking away this book sets the precedence that being part of the LGBTQIA+ community isn't okay. If your child has access to a phone or laptop, then they already have access to porn online. So maybe you should start there if you don't want your kids seeing porn. And it's not okay to take the book off the shelf for everyone. Parents have the right to take it away for their child, but they don't have the right to take it away for me or other students. That's not okay. And if you're talking about porn and unfit material, then you should look through the library, because there's so many other books not related to the LGBTQIA+ community that contain these topics. So maybe you should start there. If you're gonna take away this, then you might as well take away all of them as well. Well, you're not actually. If you take this book off the shelf, then you are saying that it's not okay to be part of the community, the LGBTQIA+ community. Sorry about that. So I just wanted to take a minute to say that and just recognize all the good things that are happening instead of all the really hateful things.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Seeing none.
Hi, I'm Jennifer White, and I own a Joyful Noise Christian Daycare and Learning Center here in town. I sent the board a letter this week. Hopefully you all had a chance to read it. I do have concerns with the materials. To me, there is pornography going on in our schools. It saddens me greatly. I do have some concerns about conflicts of interest with partnerships that occur here. We have state licensed childcare facilities that take place in these schools. We have summer camps that get childcare subsidy funding. And if you look at what the licensing rules are from the state of Maine, it says under detrimental practices, we are strictly prohibited from exposing a child to profane language. This is like not even reaching the limits of pornography, okay? We are strictly prohibited from exposing a child to profane language, depictions of violence, use of illicit drugs, or sexual content. And we're mandated to report that. It falls under child sexual abuse and exploitation. So I don't know why this is being ignored, because we are putting at risk some very good programs for our children for after-school care that are going on in this school. We're putting them at risk. It's not okay. And I have to say, with parents getting up and voicing their concerns over and over again, in my opinion, I question, does this fall under, being sexual harassment? That's something that needs to really seriously be looked at. And I'm not saying that lightly. I'm saying it very seriously. Because I think that there is, right now, people that are just on the verge. I mean, honestly, I just hate to see this turn into a legal thing. And I think we're at the cusp. So please, please look at your policies. We need revisions. There's nothing wrong with removing stuff from the libraries, okay? We're not banning books. We're removing inappropriate materials. And it's not just pornography. There's other books. Okay, for instance, I'll just tell you one that's in the high school called House of Sky and Breath. It's got the F word 335 times in it. What student needs to read that? Please tell me. It's got other curse words in there, over 200 more. 500 to 600 inappropriate words.
Thank you very much. Appreciate
We
your
need to
time.
do better.
Anyone else?
I just want to create a little safe space. Can someone have this young lady please go to the other side? She's staring down adults in an intimidating manner. And just to kind of...
She can sit wherever she like. Any other person like to speak?
Best not be recording my child.
Public place.
It's a voice...
Ladies and gentlemen.
Hello?
I have to protect her.
Ladies and gentlemen.
My
Thank
name's
you.
Mike O'Neill. I'm from Keeping Kids Safe.
I'm sorry I didn't hear that.
My name's Mike O'Neill.
Yep.
I'm from Keeping Kids Safe. Okay, my background's been in law enforcement for almost 20 years. Okay, so I'm well aware of what's happening here. All right, what we're doing, we're pitting parents against each other, children against children. I'm dealing right now with a friend of mine who's a 10-year-old who identified herself as straight because she was asked by her teacher numerous amount of times what she identifies as. She said she identifies as straight. She was being bullied because of that. She doesn't want to go to school anymore, and she wants to commit suicide. I've been dealing with it over the weekend. What are we doing? What are we doing here? Okay? We're pitting children against children. It's wrong. Absolutely wrong. We get acceptance is everybody is equal. No matter what, gay, transgender, doesn't matter. Everybody's equal. What are we doing? These parents are concerned. They're concerned. We got to work together here before we lose a child. Because we lose a child, there is going to be lawsuits against everyone in here because this is being addressed and no one's doing anything about it. Nobody. This has got to stop. Civil lawsuits are going to be filed if somebody kills themselves because of what's going on. And I don't want to be part of that if I was on the board or a teacher. We gotta stop what we're doing, take a step back, work together. It has to happen before we lose a child. This has gotta stop. Everybody's created equal. Bottom line, doesn't matter. We gotta start respecting each other or we're gonna lose, and we can't. We have a future here. Everybody, these children are the future of us, of America. We're one. That flag represents everybody. Everybody. I fought for that flag. I was in the military, and I fought for that flag. Okay? That represents everybody. We got to stop this. These books, some of these books that I looked at, yes, they are explicit sexual material. Absolutely. But there's other books out there that will help children and teach them. Get those books in the schools. We got to do something here, people, before we lose our children. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else? Okay, good.
So good evening. My name is Tiffany Sinclair. I'm a Windham resident and former Windham High School graduate. I wanted to take this opportunity to express appreciation for the RSU14 staff by sharing personal experiences as a student that attended the district and as a mom of 2 current students. As a student that moved around often, Windham School gave me something I didn't experience in many other districts. My core memories from Windham schools were centered around connection, not curriculum. Staff focused on seeing, learning, and truly knowing the students. From a child's perspective, time was not misused and with unproductive community debate. Rather, it was used to foster community togetherness and growth. My experiences here in Windham led Windham to being a town I wanted to move back to and settle my family in and invest. RSU14 is special because our staff care, support, encourage, and go the extra mile. I felt it as a student, I see it as a parent, and my sons are surrounded by it now. The staff is not perfect, they are human. Perfection is not attainable for any human, nor would we want that, as it doesn't foster the opportunity to grow and learn. We often naturally give children grace to make mistakes because we know that is the best way to learn. Unfortunately, at some point in our lives, we subconsciously stop giving grace, and that is only to our own detriment. In my opinion, what our staff does and how they show up, even after a mistake, speaks louder than the growing pains we endure. I recently sent a survey to the Wyndham staff asking for feedback regarding Staff Appreciation Week in May. I was overwhelmingly taken back by the number of responses that express the biggest way they feel appreciated is when what they do is recognized with a simple email, card, verbal acknowledgement, or handwritten thank you. After reviewing the feedback, I felt like I needed to take action. I provided a space online as well as invited community here tonight to share their appreciation and experience with the purpose of lifting our community up. Here are some highlights from what was shared online. RSU14 staff, we appreciate all the nights you stay late, all the days you cover each other when there are no substitutes available, the teamwork provided by all staff to stay late in clean rooms, sometimes with your own supplies. We see you donating your time to after-school clubs, student events, and things outside of your contracted hours. We see that your plates are full. We see you leaving overwhelmed at times, but more often we see that you are filled with pride. To the central office staff that stopped by to pull trash, thank you. It's appreciated beyond words. To the bus drivers who provided safe transportation for our children to and from school, it's a job very few want, and we cannot thank you enough. To the kitchen staff, you are truly appreciated. We see the hours you put into keeping our children with allergies safe and quality meals being served to every child. To all of the Wyndham staff, including administration, school board members, transportation, and central office, please know the community sees and appreciates that with all going on, you still show up ready to have a positive impact, even when words are harsh and debilitating. I speak for many when I say we appreciate your hard work, endless hours, and unseen dedication. We are here to support you and stand with you through challenge and success. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Gracie Levitt, and my pronouns are she, her. I live in Raymond, the traditional land of the Wabanaki Confederacy, and I am a parent of a child set to enter the RSU next year. I'd like to echo those who have voiced their gratitude for the board and for our educators. Thank you, and thank you deeply to the youth who have spoken here so courageously. Like a previous speaker tonight, I am not surprised that many in this room and in this community have different opinions about what is appropriate because we live in a pluralistic world. What I have been able to hear and read of the books myself, in my opinion, does not constitute pornography. Meanwhile, obscenity charges and charges of pornography have historically been the canary in the coal mine of attacks on the First Amendment and on civil rights, and it's this history that we are now a part of. I've heard some people in this room say their arguments against a number of books are not anti-LGBTQIA+, only to hear moments later calls to remove pride flags from schools and calling into question critical policies that ensure children can use bathrooms that align with their identities. I've also heard calls for parental rights, but it's children who are disenfranchised. Their choices, equality, and liberty must be stood up for, and I'm thankful for all the knowledgeable, skilled, and compassionate educators who do just that.
Thank you.
Jeff Dowling, Wyndham resident. I've been to the past 4 weeks of meetings. I've been sitting, listening to everyone's opinions. Been listening to everyone's opinions, both sides. And I gotta say, I'm kind of sad to hear all of this. Like, I've had a son go through the system. He had some issues at the high school that, you know, in the bathroom, that he had to deal with. Somebody coming in and using the bathroom that wasn't the proper, or wasn't male at the urinal. I didn't say anything at the time, but I'm kind of disappointed in myself for not saying something at the time. Now we're at this point, and I'm still dealing with this with my daughter in middle school. So I've read some of the books. I was prepared to go speak with the librarian, with the principal at the middle school, and you know what? I phoned it in. I said, it doesn't matter if I speak to you at this point because it's all about the policy and it's about what the board's going to do. So just want to say I don't agree with a lot of the books. It has nothing to do with LGBTQ or anything like that. It has to do with the content. Is it educational? Is it doing something for my child? I read Flamer in like 30 minutes. It's like a cartoon. You know, I read through it. I think that book would probably be okay, except for the one piece where all the boys are playing a game and masturbating into a bottle. And if you don't, you have to drink it. That's disgusting. And I don't want my kid reading that garbage. So please get the books out, and hopefully we can all stop coming to these meetings every Wednesday. I'd love to see my daughter do gymnastics again. It would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other individual would wish to speak? I don't see any movement. Okay.
Adam Zajac, Wyndham resident. You know, I'd just like to say, we're talking about not wanting to come here to talk about this anymore, but I think it'd be really easy if you guys just pulled the books in question until they were reviewed, instead of waiting month after month to review each and every book that we've put question on. It seems so easy to me, considering you already did it to one of the books a few weeks ago. And it doesn't make any sense to me that you're not even vetting the books properly. None of the librarians are reading them. That's crazy to me. You know, I donated a few books that my son and I picked out last week, and I had a really hard time finding a lot of them. I actually had to order this one right here for the elementary school. It was really hard to come by because I guess it doesn't have butt plugs, bestiality, or blowjobs in it. It's Charlie the Bulldog's Fantastic Fruit Stand, and it's a series, and I'm actually waiting on the rest of them to come in, but my son saw it come in, my little 7-year-old, and loved it. And he doesn't even like to read, and he's read it for the past 4 nights straight. And I read it with him last night, and it's about 2 dogs. One that's lazy, 2 bulldogs. One that's lazy, that wants to sit around and watch TV all day, and then the other dog that knows how to read and write, and she builds a fruit stand, and she actually makes enough money to buy a dog toy that she gets to play with, and Otis, her brother, doesn't get to play with it because he didn't earn any money to buy one. So it's a story about, actually she ends up sharing the toy afterwards, so it's a story about sharing and being successful in life, and the difference to just being lazy and not doing anything. You know, a lot of parents have talked about taking their kids out of school and homeschooling their kids. And I, for one, was not into that. And I think a lot of other parents that work, it's just not possible. And man, I didn't want to say this, but last year I actually came so close to doing a skilled trades course for TIG welding and fabrication. And, you know, if we don't start getting our shit together in this school system, I'm really going to start thinking about opening up a skilled trades school next year. And I've gotten a lot of requests from teachers from the RSU14 that aren't happy with what's being taught here, and they would love to come aboard and join. And
thank you, sir. Appreciate your time.
I'm going to hold on to this book until the rest of the series comes because my kid really likes
Perfect,
it.
thanks. Anybody else? Okay, that concludes public comment.